Yo, this is Tom Cat for President, here to talk about some jotted down ideas in which we want to bring about and yada yada. Proposed changes in brief, very brief. We want to come together with our common goals to accomplish those versus trying to compete over who's going to run the show. Food, agriculture, factory farms, subsidies of meat and dairy production needs to stop. It's destroying the planet, CO2 emissions, factory farming. It's the only reason meat and dairy is affordable compared to the vegan options that are out there, which are better for your body typically. Also, with agriculture, way too much food is thrown away into the trash. As you all know, we've all been to restaurants. A lot of us have worked in restaurants. We see just dumpsters and dumpsters full of food that's still good, that can be consumed by other people. But we got hungry people starving all over the country, all over the planet. That needs to stop, needs to be redirected, distributed, kept clean, kept, edible, nutritious for your body. Something to do with waivers we gotta have going on. Because I think the biggest problem is companies, corporations are afraid of being sued for people getting sick, homeless people getting sick that are in need of food. But also at the same time, we don't want people poisoning this food. Prison reform, huge issue. For-profit prisons, it's something that needs to get tackled more hardcore, that many people are working on. But we need to accelerate this insanely. Tons of people wrongly accused behind bars. The system isn't trying to help people reform. The prison system isn't trying to help people become actual citizens again. It's costing more money than it's costing to go to Harvard Law School now. People's lives are being destroyed. People put in situations who didn't have many options to begin with now have zero options because of it. There's still people behind bars who are smoking a joint of marijuana from back in the 70s, despite it being legal in half the country. Wage equilibrium. Here's where we get into the people trying to say socialism is evil, capitalism is evil, whatever. Obviously, there's a huge gap that's been widened over the past few decades, which is not just prominent in the US, but it's also an issue in Europe as well. But the difference is people in Europe are actually angry and upset enough to get out in the streets and cause a scene. We're not going to go as far as to say there should be no such thing as billionaires, but it's more about just keeping things fair game, equal, but at the same time we want people to be rewarded for their hard work, etc. But we're thinking something along the lines of equal pay for any job. It just depends on how many hours you want to put in, essentially. But somebody being hired to clean up sewers or toilets should essentially be being paid the same amount as somebody who plays basketball. There's no reason somebody doing something they love should be paid more than someone stuck doing something they hate. Yet we're aware of wanting to keep that that drive to succeed, but the whole competitive field basically becomes bullshit at a certain point. So another thing, Native American rights, land access. This was all native grounds. Now these people are being still to this day. They're trying to, it's genocide. They're trying to wipe them out. It's really disturbing. It's disgusting. I think that Native Americans, people with Native bloodline, should have more of a say-so in the political system. Even though I'm typically not somebody that's in support of things like affirmative action to a certain degree, I think something like that is necessary, because this is stolen land. Although we have all been born, obviously, hundreds of years after this has taken place. However, this fucking idiot we have in the White House right now deleted all the files on Native Americans. They're changing the numbers on how much native blood you need to have. in order to qualify for certain benefits as far as education and reservations, which are under attack, obviously. You got oil pipelines being built and then exploding underneath the earth, underneath the land, polluting the rivers. It's forewarned. People are saying we're against this. Fucking businesses backed by the military going in there, shooting them with hoses from a few years ago. That's all disgusting, disturbing atrocities against humanity. It needs to be changed. So I think there should be at least, 50% in the White House. 50% of the White House should be run by Native Americans, is what I'm trying to say. And then something along those lines, state to state as well. How we're going to go about this, how many people are actually running or wanting to be involved in politics that are Native, that's a different story. Disposable resources. Not everything is disposable. Really nothing is disposable. Energy can only be changed. But we got, plastic buried under the ground. We got recycling facilities. You put all your trash, all your recyclables into a recycling bin, and then they just dump them into the landfills anyway. It's destroying the planet, making it harder for the planet to breathe. We're part of the planet. It's making it worse for us. So much plastic, something crazy. I don't remember the statistic, but I think it's up in like the 90s of 90-something% of how much plastic they've pulled out of the oceans, how it's affecting fish, whales, life, washing up on shores, dead animals. It just doesn't break down. We don't need to be selling water. We don't need to allow these companies to be taking water from communities, putting them in plastic, having the plastic break down into the water that you're then putting in your body, thus blocking off your body being able to absorb nutrients, and funding this. It's just completely absurd, disgusting, ridiculous. We need to protect the water, protect the air. Should not be so that you have to pay extra money to go to these companies and buy bottled water or air, as they do in some places now even, which is disturbing. Basic necessities should not be capitalized and monopolized on. Just refill a metal water container, or if you have a plastic one that's reusable, just reuse. Life is not disposable. Alternative power. Oil's done us well, sort of, except for the part where, again, we're destroying the ozone layer, we're breathing in these chemicals. It's I don't have to sit here and say why it's bad. There's evidence out there. We'll talk about it in detail later. But yeah, basically, we just want to stop production of oil-run vehicles, lawnmowers, leaf blowers, anything that's using oil. We don't need it. There's safer, cheaper, more environmentally friendly ways to go about it. So just immediately cease of production on water bottles, animal agriculture, oil running machines. Start garages essentially to convert cars that run on oil to alternative solar or vegetable oil, etc. We'd start breaking it down based on people's current income, what they can afford. Obviously, if you're making $1 million or $500,000 a year or more, you can afford to buy a Tesla or something, as opposed to somebody who's barely getting by, who's making $10,000 or less a year, if they even have a car. You can't go out and buy a Tesla. You can't pay to convert your car to something, but you probably still need it to get to work and take care of your family or whatever. So a program to essentially start with helping people who can't afford it, and then people who can afford it be responsible for buying your own vehicle or converting your own vehicle. Oh, what else we got here? Selected taxes equal percentage of all gain loss percentage. Yeah, tax transparency is a must. The whole tax cuts for the rich or taxing them more, it's just absurd. Just tax everybody the same amount, the same percentage. Then everybody loses the same percentage, and also we should be able to vote on where we want our taxes to go to. So if you don't want to fund overseas wars, or you want to focus on a bus system, you want to focus on schools, you want to focus on the roads, you want to focus on the parks, whatever, check the little box where you want your tax money going. We're all paying the same tax percentage. We all are being deducted the same amount. It's equal. It's stupid, ludicrous crap to try and argue, well, if I make $1 million and I'm paying 10%, then I'm paying more than somebody who makes $10 an hour. Just keep it equal. Don't try to weasel out of it. Don't be greedy. We're a community. We're people. We live together. We depend on each other. We need to stop walking on the backs of other people. We need to stop walking on the backs of animals. This whole country, the United States, or Western culture, many cultures, so many cultures, too many cultures, we've built up on the blood and sweat and backs of those who just are treated like trash, and it needs to stop now. Look at Star Trek. Science fiction, but we got cell phones that were initially theorized, conceptualized on that show. The whole concept of what I'm trying to say with like Star Trek, not that I'm super into it, is we can live together peacefully for the benefit of progress of mankind. We don't have to kill each other. We don't have to oppress each other in order to progress. We can progress peacefully and together, because we're in this together anyway. Free education, free healthcare, legalize abortions. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You know. Don't try to make it more difficult. Separation of church and state. These are pretty old notes, but yeah, of course, separation of church and state. The term God can mean whatever you want if you're atheist. If it changes, change it to "in great spirit we trust," which is more aligned with Native American principles, which is the land that we're on. All faces on money should be peacekeepers, justice fighters, people such as Martin Luther King Jr., Crazy Horse, Malcolm X, Geronimo, Einstein, people who work to progress mankind peacefully together, not necessarily people who are running away and trying to start their secret organizations, lust for power and knowledge that had been consolidated to the select few who are in control, running stuff. War, you know, we all want to end war essentially if we're actually intelligent, connected, spiritually. It's a tricky subject, but basically fuck imperialism. Defend and protect each other, not oppress. Communicate. Nuclear weapons disposed of, all sink to end world and mathematically eliminate each nuke at a time. Can you trust the other country? Can they trust us to get rid of our weapons? We're going to have to work on that. Law enforcement, citizens have the right to same weapons. That's basically me stating that I am for the right to bear arms. It just has to do with more of owning responsibly, being educated, being balanced. We need to stop kind of demonizing. You know, you can kill somebody with a pencil. You can kill somebody with your bare hands. Yes, it's easier with a semi-automatic weapon, but the point is to get to a state of being a civilization to where we can be responsible enough, we can be in tune enough with each other and our society to where, you know, you can maybe even own an atom bomb or a machine gun, and you're not gonna use it. You're not gonna use it to hurt people. But then, of course, yeah, that's gonna be a process, and the argument is if you just take away these semi-automatic weapons, there's no, you don't have to worry about it. But then we still have corrupt government and cops running around with all kinds of insane weapons and tanks and stuff like that. So that's kind of my side of the argument with this is if the government's criminal, if the police force is criminal, and they have weapons anyway, then why shouldn't the rest of us? Trial equality for law enforcement, government, such as citizens, new judges, lawyers, all will be held accountable for their actions. No more letting police and crooked judges, politicians get away just because of their power. So Poland did this thing back after the fall of the USSR, where I think they started off with their chiefs, top of the line in the police force, weeded out anyone suspected to be associated with any corruption or unfairness, retired them essentially, give them their pensions, basically just get them the hell out of there, then work with the rest of the officers. Basically just completely rebuilding the police force from scratch, because that's essentially what needs to happen right now in order to weed out corruption. Same thing with judges, etc. It really needs to be restarted from scratch, and people who have violated legal law, have broken the law, people upholding the law who have broken the law need to be held accountable equally, if not more so, than somebody who basically grew up on the streets and didn't see as having many options, or was in a struggle. The law applies to everybody. So that's something we want to focus on. Prices for items, equal percentage. Impossible to know how much income everyone has, but we want to make it fair while keeping the hardworking work ethic alive. It's diminished under capitalism or the current state. Basically, that's just getting at part of balancing the gap with. For instance, we'll go back to the law thing. You get pulled over with you get a speeding ticket. If you got a ton of money, $100 ticket is like a penny to somebody who makes $10 an hour. Obviously, if it doesn't affect me, I'm going to keep driving like a jerk. If it affects me, if I'm late for work or something and I'm caught speeding, you're still breaking the law, you shouldn't be doing that. But if I make way less, $100 ticket is like, a half a week or a whole week of what I'm making versus what somebody could be making in an hour or a minute. Same thing with goods, although that depends on independent business and all that, but a way to basically kind of even it out while we close this gap so that it's not unfair or unequal to people. So we're not living in a classist system. Transparency on supposed communication of extraterrestrial Roswell technology. So I feel like there's lots of things that the people in control, super high up there, I don't even know where the lines are drawn necessarily. People start saying this is conspiracy, yada yada yada. But basically, withholding knowledge, advanced knowledge that's existed for hundreds, thousands of years, communication with forces beyond the normal, what's normally accepted as logical, reasonable, or real. The idea is we want a transparency of all knowledge and what's going on, so that we can all progress and grow together again as a society, as opposed to withholding information for certain people who deem themselves elite. Of course, you're going to be ahead of the curve if you have access and knowledge and communication to certain things or incidents that you're repressing from other people from knowing because you're afraid that you don't trust them. I'm sure there's good reason within that, but basically we just want to keep everything transparent, on the same level, open to work as more of a direct democracy. All the people who live here, all the people who are putting in their labor, their time, their votes, all of that needs to be made equal, because it's not right now. It's classist, it's sexist, it's racist, it's real screwed up. And Death Cat for president, or Gato the Revolution, or whatever the inspiration for this video is, we just want to bring people together to, make stuff more balanced, because, I am you, you are me, we're all one. All that hippie stuff is true. So we could be living in such a better society right now if we weren't walking on the backs of each other, if we weren't destroying the environment, if we weren't destroying each other. We could be all eating healthy without hurting animals, hurting other people. We could probably have cures for all kinds of stuff that we don't or supposedly don't, if we weren't destroying the rainforest, if we weren't funding these organizations, these corporations, etc., if we weren't allowing corrupt politicians and criminals to get away with things they've been getting away with, if we all took responsibility for our actions and realized that you can't escape your own karma. Everything ripples around. It will come back to you in this life or the next in some form. If you stunt somebody else's progress, essentially you are stunting your own. Death cat for president, death cat for emperor, whatever the joke is, just don't be jerks to each other.